What's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Talk Markets with Dave Lauer. I am your co-host, Pink, and today we are doing a deep dive into the grassroots advocacy group of so-called individual investors. That's you, me, that's us. That's WTI, we the investors. Now, before we get into it, I do just want to clarify real quick that although WTI is funded and led by Irvin, it is a separate advocacy effort from our business. We get that question a lot, so I just wanted to get that out of the way real quick. So the last month or so has been a whirlwind of hearings and proposals and final rules that directly correlate to the advocacy efforts of WTI. And in case you haven't been following along, allow me to give you a rundown and hit the highlights of the last several weeks. About a month ago, the UK's shared digitization dematerialization proposal was brought to the attention of we the investors, and immediately the team drafted a response. Our comment letter overall said that we do support the effort by the UK to digitize share certificates and believe the best option is the proposed move to DLT. However, the UK should allow shares to be directly registered. That same week, Dave, you were on Capitol Hill and even served a little foreshadowing on Twitter when you said that DC was definitely paying attention right now to individual investors. You said the comment letters are working, that change is happening, and although it might be slower than we'd like, we're changing decades of rules, which takes time. But you mentioned that every meeting you had, they were interested in hearing our ideas for change and remarked about the number of comment letters and the passion of individual investors, which can never be understated, in my personal opinion. Then at the end of September, the House Financial Services Committee held a hearing with SEC and Gary Gensler, where we got the now infamous first shout out in Congress, with Florida Rep. Byron Donalds accusing Gensler of astroturfing with a group of so-called individual investors, referring to we the investors. That was a fun day. That launched its own flurry of responses to legislators both on and off the committee, and it even spawned its own hashtag. And we even released a bop. We have a single about it. I think it's called So Called, So I Called, and the hashtag So Called, So I Called. Amidst the fiscal battle that kicked off the month of October, that same committee tried to slip in a provision to defund the SEC's new market structure proposals. Dave, you mentioned on Twitter with that, everything is on the line here. And if this provision makes it through, the SEC stops work on reforming markets. It would essentially be a gift to the supporters of the status quo. So we definitely don't want that. And in further evidence that we pissed the right people off, especially with that little tweet thread, Dave, that even spawned an attempted DDoS attack on our site. So that was fun, which was because Dave is such a security expert, that he nipped that right in the bud and blocked them straight away. Not successful, but still a fun attempt. Lo and behold, our comment letters worked. The SEC updated rules to reduce the amount of time funds have private information, marking a much needed change, and it reflects the exact issue that Byron Donalds called us out on, which was 13D. And just last week, at the time of recording this, the SEC held an open meeting with votes on two new rules, one of which being the first comment letter campaign by we the investors that resulted in over 2,000 comment letters from you guys. Still, I think that should be celebrated every day. That was an amazing accomplishment. And it resulted in the votes passed on both rules, actually, marking a major milestone in the we the investors movement. So everybody give yourself a round of applause. And for the critics who still think it's all for show, our letter was cited 9 times in the final rule. So there you go. Also last week, Dave, you and our Irvin COO, Alex Cohen, known lovingly by me and probably the whole Reddit community as StonkU2, were invited to give a presentation at ComputerShare's client conference. You were joined on stage by Paul Kahn, which I thought was awesome. It was like the Avengers assembling or something. But you were able to share the mission of Irvin and the advocacy accomplishments of we the investors with their members in attendance. Finally, this week, the SEC held an open hearing to propose a new rule to ban rebate tiers on exchanges. And that's a topic that Dave and I have covered in a past, I think it was an early podcast episode. And a headline has emerged that you should probably get used to reading. Citadel is suing the SEC to prevent the commission from improving and modernizing regulations. That's also a move we called about 6 months ago on this podcast. Whew. So while it's par for the course in regards to the legal order of operations, there are some unprecedented things happening in the world of market reform, and squarely in the center of that storm is our advocacy group, We the Investors. Dave, what a list of accomplishments. Like, congratulations are in order. And I want to speak as an individual investor and kind of take my co-host hat off for a second and say thank you so much to you and the team for how far you have led this and your unending advocacy on the behalf of individual investors that just cannot be overstated, in my opinion. And I know that it feels like fighting Goliath at times, but you guys, we have documented proof that we already have fruits of our labor showing. So it's definitely worth the effort and worth continued effort. So how are you feeling? I'm exhausted just from going through that list. How are you feeling after such a whirlwind, what I would call very successful month?
Well, first, and I appreciate that, but I have to say, thank you to everyone. I mean, we wouldn't be here without the mass of support and the mass of people who care about these issues now, who step up and take action, sign letters, file comment letters, sign petitions, everything, make phone calls to Congress, write letters to Congress. Every single thing that you do matters. Every single little action, it adds up. It really is adding up. And that's why we're even here talking about it. So yeah, it's amazing to see that people care. And I honestly feel humbled, and I thank every single person who has taken, even the smallest action. It all matters. So I don't know. It's wild. Going through the last, just listening to you read, I think it's exhausting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
That took me like 5 minutes, I think, to get through. Maybe I timed it, and it was a lot shorter than that. But wow, I mean, seriously, that's worth celebrating. And like you said, without the thousands of investors behind every comment letter, behind everything that we, the investors, represents, we're just another group of lobbyists with our own, agenda. Essentially, there's no, you are the essence as the individual investor of all of this. So applause is definitely in order.
I really think one of the things that sets us apart as an organization is that, there's no one involved who has sort of an ulterior motive or who stands to gain in an insidious way. We as Irvin, none of these rule changes matter to our business. They just matter to, us as individual investors as well. And to us as economic participants in the country. And so, I think that purity helps to set us apart, and it gives us credibility when we're talking to people who hear a lot from firms who do stand to lose money with these new rules. And so I think we're a bit of a breath of fresh air to a lot of these people when we go talk to them in DC or when we file this stuff, because I think the arguments are well reasoned, but most importantly is that every time we do something, people show up. We get the numbers, and it shows that people care, and I think that the SEC particularly appreciates that. But Congress does too. So, Congress has been a bit distracted the last couple of weeks. And so we haven't been pushing the Calling Congress campaign as much. Whenever you listen to this podcast, at the moment, the House of Representatives still has no speaker. So, but maybe by the time you listen to it, they're able to pass laws again. But certainly once they've moved on from this, current period and chaos, we will resume, and we will focus on calling Congress, because that is where sort of, I think, ground zero for this is right now. But yeah, I mean, when you look at just this list of stuff, this has been a month of change in markets, and, everybody listening, everybody who's written, everybody who's taken an action has been a part of that change. And I think that's a real accomplishment to celebrate. And it might not feel, we're not getting everything we want. We're not getting it all at once. Sure. But brick by brick, we're making the change that we want to see happen.
That's right.
And I think that's, from my perspective, that's how you make real change in the world.
Absolutely. The people that, there are people that say, engaging is worthless. There's no reason to. It's not going to, how is one person going to change it? Or even in response to, like, the overall response from the community has been really positive on these most recent rule changes, especially the show your shorts rule, I'll call it. But there's also been a lot of just vitriol and backlash. And to me, as a moderator online, I can clearly see that these aren't genuine accounts, by and large, that are saying this, that are saying that's stupid. Why are we even doing this? What's the point of these efforts? Like, why would we, those people are being paid to provide that opposition on a public forum so that people will lose steam and they won't celebrate this victory that is very much worth celebrating, because that's how any level of government works. You do it piece by piece, brick by brick. I mean, they're just now starting to try to understand the concept of things like AI and crypto, and so it takes time. So, and that's, let's start with the UK digitization proposal from last month. That was actually, at time of recording this, right at a month ago. That really would change the way that UK investors hold their directly registered shares. So you were able to get a good response from that.
Yeah, that issue popped up, from the community. And again, we the investors, it's a community-led organization, right? We try and respond to what the community wants us to. Often issues get popped up that we didn't find out about, but the community did, because it's on top of everything. It's incredible. And so, the UK put out a proposal, and the thrust of it was, hey, we need to digitize paper shares. Great, and most people agree with that. But the sort of wrinkle to it was that the primary suggestion was that all shares should be held through a nominee, which is like a broker. And of course we said, well, that's a recipe for abuse and a recipe for problems. And
ask us how we know.
and right, as we've learned that, separating someone from their shares leads to problems. And for some people, they might want to hold their shares that way. That's fine. But
I'll hold mine forever. I'm taking it to my grave.
Yeah, right. Others,
and you should, as an investor, as a shareholder, you should have that right. You should be able to, even if it's not physical paper, you should still be able to hold that however you choose. Yeah, people want to hold their shares. They want to be registered. They want to have a direct relationship with the companies they're investing in. And I don't see a problem with that. And it should be something that the system allows for. So, we put together a quick letter. And we tried to be concise with it, as we always try to, and we said, we gave people information. That's what we usually do. We tried to educate on the issue, lay out our thoughts, and say, here, you want to use this letter? Great, use this letter. You don't write your own. It's up to you. With everything we do, we try to empower people. And so, look, it's hard to say, because there's no sort of visibility into how many of those letters were filed, but I get the sense it was pretty high. It was around our normal multi-thousand letter, campaign. Agree. Yeah.
I saw a similar level
watching the way the topic spread through Reddit. I definitely agree with that number.
Yeah, and so again, we'll watch, and we're watching how this issue unfolds, and we'll see what happens in the UK, and we'll continue to make sure that people's voices are being heard. I mean, that's for us the most important thing.
And that's what scares them so much. It scares DC, is that this is a totally self-led initiative of these are individuals who are deciding this is worth their time. It's not incentivized in any way, besides they just want more transparency in markets. They just want, XYZ. And so it blows their mind. It's like, what do you mean people would just do this of their own free will with no incentive? Why would someone?
They're so used to nobody caring.
Exactly. Or, people paying for opinions or what have you.
Right.
So
that's right. For sure.
So that was awesome. And I also have to commend you guys on the swiftness. I mean, you guys really did prepare a response. I'm pretty sure it was overnight. If it wasn't overnight, it was within like 2 days of being made aware of this issue. And that's just a plus on the effort of we the investors on that.
Yeah, sometimes speed is of the essence, and we're really fortunate that we just have people that can help us from sort of all walks of life, but the organization itself, the people that have come to support us, it's incredibly diverse group of people. But we also have a great group of industry experts that just really love what we're doing. And for many of them, it's really difficult to do that publicly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we don't have them in our back pocket, and we have all these people that when I have because I don't know, there's so much I don't know. When I don't know something, I have just a list of people I can go to who are experts in every little nuance of different parts of markets. Even if it's something I do know, I want to make sure I'm getting it right, and I can bounce ideas off these people. And honestly, it's so cool, but they're just everywhere, internationally, at big firms, at startups. It's, I've met a lot of people in my career, and our success as a movement has attracted a lot of people to us who have reached out to me. And so I think that was actually a good example of something. And, I didn't know the nuances of the UK issue as well as I, would have liked. But I knew people who did, and we jumped on it, and we got them to help us, and that was the result. So I think we've seen that with a few issues now, and I actually think it's one of the more powerful parts of what we do, but it's unfortunately one of the parts that we can't really, we can't give too much detail about, and we can't really hold it up specifically, but we do. We have a lot of industry support, and the industry doesn't want you to know that either. It's an industry
that's something
that is
I'm constantly, as someone who kind of straddles the community, we the investors, I hear a lot of the talk of what you're saying. This was the response we got as we the investors, and I'm like, that's amazing. I wish the community could be told or could understand, the level of support it's growing too.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And just being open to having the conversation with these legislators, that's huge. So
and that's
we can have
that.
this.
Following the UK, issue, we Alex and I did go to DC for the week, and we had a bunch of great meetings with members of Congress, folks at the SEC, and I tried to provide as much information publicly as I could in terms of the reception that we were getting, which was positive, nearly universally. Even I got to say that we met with someone at the SEC that doesn't agree with us, but it was a very productive meeting, and we found areas of common ground, and we found areas of I would say ways of framing the issue that make sense, and you got to understand, we go to DC, I don't know, once every couple of months. Whereas someone described it to me that it's a SIFMA might as well have opened a satellite office at the SEC. They're there so much. That's what was said to me, and for real. So we're up against this steady drumbeat. They're always in these people's faces. They're always in front of them, and that's a very difficult thing to counteract. And so, I think maybe in the future that's something we want to address. But right now it's okay because we still have the numbers, and we still know we're right on a lot of these issues. And we're just slowly but surely, I think, bringing people over to that view. And so I'm really looking forward to see, what happens in the House of Representatives. We do have this issue that's happening in terms of the funding battle. And this rider that's being put into the general appropriations bill. And so that's something, again, where we need people mobilized. We need them calling their member of Congress, and we need to do it regularly. I have a question too on that.
As a layman, from a scale of 1 to 10, how greasy is that? Because that seems like 11 greasy. Like that's to slide that into an already heated fiscal discussion is just like that's intentional to me. That reads intentionally evil.
Oh yeah, they were hoping nobody would notice. They were hoping there's a ton of attention, and it would just kind of get slipped in. And I'll tell you what, the tumult that is happening with the speaker race is directly applicable to this. And so with a Speaker McCarthy or a Speaker, even a Speaker Jim Jordan, it wouldn't have stood a good chance of making it through the appropriations process. With a Speaker pro tem Patrick McHenry, which is what is looking most likely right now, he's probably the one that put it in there. If he wasn't, it was his committee, and he is in the pocket of these people, and so that is a pretty material development when you look at how the House is being led, in terms of the impact that it will have on what we're trying to do. If he is indeed Speaker pro tem, and this will likely then make it through. Now, that doesn't mean we stop calling. We keep calling. We call even more. We let them know that we see what they're doing and that it's not okay. But at that point, the focus will shift to the Senate, where they will, in all likelihood, strip it out, and that will become a point of negotiation and contention, as the two, legislature halves try to conference and come up with a bill to fund the government. So this is something that it's going to be an issue for weeks, not for days. This is for probably through the end of the year, a campaign that we're going to have to focus on. And the most important thing you can do is call your member of Congress, call your senator too, and let them know that this is an issue you care about and that you do not want Congress to defund the SEC's efforts to reform markets.
Right. And I've doxed myself before on this podcast, so I don't mind saying I live in Oklahoma. Do you think they listen to me? I still call them at least bi-week, twice a week. And I mean, I don't even get calls back from two of them, but that's, you call, you leave a message, you email, whatever you need to do to get in touch, to get in contact, to, at least get that read receipt on your email that says, hey, they at least read it and they know that we're paying attention. And people need to understand what a pivotal time this is, just on a broader political scale, obviously. But, you can come into Capitol Hill as an advocacy group, and I think most probably do come in as a bipartisan effort. But it eventually gets drilled down to a partisan issue so that it can be dismissed, argued till it's
they try and make it partisan.
A dead horse.
Yeah. If they can make it a partisan issue, they can drive a wedge between us, and that's the goal. And this is a bipartisan issue. There are lots of Republicans who support what we're doing. There are lots of Democrats that do. There are a ton of Republicans that oppose what we're doing. And there are some Democrats who oppose. And, it's very important that we don't let them do that, and that we make sure that this is not about these issues are not left and right. These are, money and not money. That's really exactly what, it's the haves and the have-nots. And that's, that goes across the political spectrum.
Yes, this is a class issue, essentially. Right. I mean, it really is, if you want to look at it that way, that this is it. They're going to make it political, though. So,
and they did, right?
But did. And that's what
that oversight hearing.
Jeez.
Oh my God.
Listen, I bet he probably, Rep. Donald's probably turned his Twitter notifications off, and they're still not turned back on. I guarantee you, because you poke the hive, and man, it's going to sting.
I mean, I was listening to this hearing, and these hearings are not interesting. These are boring hearings. This was 4 hours into a hearing. I'm half tuned out. I'm not paying close to, you can't for 4 hours. I got work. I got shit to do, right? I'm doing stuff. And suddenly but it's on in the background. And suddenly I hear him talk about 13D, and I was like, oh, okay, that's something interesting. I'm gonna go check that out. And as I'm watching, and he's like, and he asks him, oh, did you have a meeting with some senator's office, and did you ask them to contact a group called We the Investors? I was like, what?
Yeah, I was actually kind of a fly on the wall for that because I was in a meeting and you were in the room, kind of in the background, and you were like, "Holy shit! He just said we the investors." They said it in Congress.
I couldn't
Oh,
believe it.
that was awesome.
I mean,
yeah,
there's our first mention in a congressional hearing, so that, check that box. Cool.
they showed their hand too. I mean, totally. They really showed their hand with that one statement of
They did.
where they fall on the issue. Oh.
That they really went into they really exposed the arguments that are being made behind closed doors. So it was interesting. So what we saw when right, Byron Dongle.
Donald, yeah, Byron Donald.
Reynolds.
I mess it up too. It's kind of a funky name.
Yeah. Anyway, so he said, "Oh, it was funny actually. So first he said, you were flooded with 300 comment letters." Okay, that was like we didn't really do much on that comment campaign.
Yeah,
we put the letter out. It was a little last minute. We thought this is an important issue, but it's sort of separate from a lot of the issues we really focused on, and we sort of pushed hard on it at the end because there was some misconception in the community about that particular rule proposal, which we can get into for a second on 13D. But what we saw was that misconception. We went to correct it, but the community had already filed a lot of comment letters. And so it was funny because what we saw was, okay, so someone is going around in the background, someone who funds a lot of these congressmen, and they are telling them
they smell like
these
mayonnaise.
are fake. These are fake letters. They're not from real people, from so-called individuals. And so first of all, 300, that's not flooding the comment file. 3,000 is flooding the comment file.
Check our other campaigns, sir.
Yeah. Come on. Give us a break here. But, the other thing is it's funny because if we wanted to fake this, we could, and our numbers would be astronomical, right? Like we'd have 100,000 letters,
Yeah.
We're very careful about this. And I assume because, as we're going to see in a minute, this Citadel suing the SEC, they're going to sue them. And in fact, what this exposed is that they might come at us in one of these lawsuits. And so we have to be ready to be subpoenaed and to show that everything we've done is above board. We have to be better than them. Okay. We know that these people fake this kind of stuff. We know that they, have networks of bots and shills all over social media and, doing all this stuff. We don't do that. We are above board in everything we do, and they want to come after us. No problem. We have every bit of evidence that we could possibly need. But, like I said, this exposed what they're saying about us, and that's good. So now we know a bit more.
We definitely know where we stand now, and where, there's. And
we know we're being effective.
Yeah, I like scaring them. I mean, when you say that, the ape in me just starts beating my chest, like bring it on. And I know that it's going to be a more nuanced, intelligent conversation than that. Hopefully,
that's right.
If that does come to pass, but
and so I would like to say, right? So 13D did get approved, which we were very happy about. And in that final rule proposal, they did clarify there was a concern in the community that bringing in derivatives holders into this disclosure regime would result in them getting some kind of voting right. And we tried to be very clear at the time that is not the case and that could not possibly happen. And the SEC was very clear in the final rule. They did alter the way that they brought derivatives holders into the disclosure regime, but they still brought them in, which is the most important part. And in a footnote, they said, no, that that could not happen. This is not a question of voting rights. This is simply a question of disclosure. So again, you want to see us impacting the process. I think that's another example of it where that wouldn't have been in there otherwise. And you know what? It's a good thing. It's fine. I think it's fine for the SEC to clarify something like that, make sure people understand, and correct any misconception that might have been out there. So, overall, that was great. It was great to see it. And it was just really funny that Donald said that. And and I got to give a shout out to Body Surf Dan here.
I was just about to. I was like, we really need to plug that. Like Dan came out with a banger in response to that.
I hope you guys, if you haven't already, have listened to this song.
Yeah.
And I think it's hyped people up. It's gotten more people to call Congress. It's having a real impact, and I just love it. I love that. That's the kind of stuff we do. You know, we see an issue, we jump on it, and we try and do it creatively. We want to engage people. We want it to resonate, and it's a tune I can't even get out of my head every time I hear it.
We'll definitely outro with that. We'll just play that at the end of this podcast so you can
that's right. Yeah,
you can hear it before we leave. So for sure, that was fun, and it was kind of a we made it moment. It's like, now what do we do? Okay, next game plan.
And so let's real quick on 13D, let's talk about the specifics. That was a rule to shorten the time period that hedge funds generally have, or anyone else who holds who amasses a position of more than 5% in a company. And the time to disclose that today is 10 days. This shortens it to 5 days. And that's good, because in those extra 5 days, a lot of people were losing a lot of money when they were selling stock without having the inside information that these hedge funds and their friends would have. And so this is an important step forward to protect retail investors and protect public companies so that more information is out there more quickly. And so that's going to make markets better. I think that's a big deal.
Again, brick by brick.
Yeah, that's right. And then, last week, the SEC had an open meeting on 2 new rules. The first is disclosing securities financing transactions, the security loan market. So this would be a new feed that would give information on the loans that are being made. That's information that we do have on Irvin Finance on the platform, but it's not market wide. It's the best feed you can get, but it's not everything. This would provide everything. That's a huge step forward. And then there was another rule that will finally result in the disclosure of short positions in individual companies. And again, that's something that got a ton of pushback, and the industry wanted the rule to be withdrawn, and we came in and supported it. We said it could be better, but it was a good start. And the great thing is all of the disclosure goes to the regulator now, so they will have all the information. They're going to start by disclosing aggregated, anonymized information, so we'll at least get an accurate picture of short interest on an individual stock. But what the industry is worried about is that ultimately this will lead to individual firms having to disclose their short positions. And of course,
oh no.
Yeah, that's what we hope it will lead to. And so let's see if maybe there's a second version of this.
Of course they're sweating over that.
Yeah,
I would be too if that was my payday. Anyway.
That's right. And again, you want to see what making an impact looks like. It looks like us being cited 9 times in that final rule in our comment letters. And that's a big deal. It's important.
Huge deal.
So we're running up into it. A couple more things. We haven't even covered everything, but I do want to show something off. Check this out. Look at my Billy Beane autographed baseball.
That's rad.
This guy got to meet Billy Beane at the Computer Share Client Conference.
So how was that? Even as a not very big baseball fan, I played softball when I was younger, but even I know what a big deal Billy Beane is. It's like Billy Beane, Nolan Ryan, like I can name a few more, So,
I mean, he transformed baseball, he was like, oh, baseball's awesome and I love it. What if we used math?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, you're crazy. What are you
Leave
talking
it to the nerd. Nerd.
And it was just, he gave a great talk. And one of the themes of his talk was, think outside the box, do stuff different, do something different than what's being done. And really resonated, right? Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to do something different. We're here to look at the status quo and say, this isn't right, it needs to change. And here we're going to try a different way of changing it. And
great segue to Irvin there.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And we got up right after Billy Beane. He was a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
We
you
got
guys
up in
paired
front
it
of
off.
a room of public companies, and we talked about how important this stuff is and why it matters. And we got a great reception, I think, to that talk. So we're thrilled Computershare had us, invited us to be a part of that, and really enjoyed the experience.
Those were Computershare clients, and Computershare is the largest issuer in the world.
Largest transfer agent.
The largest transfer agent in the world. So you do the math on what kind of great exposure that is on our advocacy efforts, on our business front. That's a really great conversation to have. Plus, you got to be on the purple stage. That's pretty awesome. So
got to be on the purple stage. That's right. Yep. So that was, it was a nice sort of end to this pretty incredible month of really just working to make markets better and seeing some of the results of that. Yeah,
definitely so. With a whole new battlefront being exposed with the whole rebate tiers discussion and Citadel's lawsuit. So
there's even more to talk about. Yeah.
They just keep giving us content, don't they?
I know. So I haven't looked at the rule proposal yet for rebate tiers. I'm going to. I'm glad they're taking it on. I think there's a good way to take it on and a bad way to take it on. And we'll see what it looks like. But listening to the open meeting, it sounds like they proposed a few alternatives as well. And so we'll see what it looks like, and let everyone know what we think. But this is a really fundamental conflict of interest in markets. Exchange rebates is a form of payment for order flow. We think all payment for order flow should go away. But eliminating rebate tiers is one way to get at that conflict of interest, and it also leads to concentration in markets, and it's anti-competitive. And we just want open, competitive markets, and so this is a key issue for us.
For sure. To Eli Ape, this definitely falls in line with the overall movement that resulted from the meme stock, GameStop, all of that. If you cared about those issues, you care about this issue. So
that's right.
This is why you have to stay tuned, because this unrolls bit by bit, and now we've got a fun lawsuit to tune into with Citadel and see what comes of that. I know they're just trying to throw a wrench in the spokes of progress, but it might be successful if we back down. So
that's right. They don't like how the consolidated audit trail is being funded, amongst many other things that they don't like. So we'll see what that looks like.
They don't like that we're trying to get the SEC to cut some teeth. That's what they don't like. Right. But anyway, okay. Well, that about wraps it up. We definitely will be having this conversation again soon, because like we just said, there's always something coming out in the works to stay on top of, new comment letters to engage with, and you guys never let us down. You always show up for these things. So just a big shout out, a big thank you once again to you guys for your engagement and your support through comment letters, through social media, through listening to this podcast, however you choose to engage. We appreciate it, and keep the effort up. Dave, 100%. Any last words for the lovely audience?
No, that's it. I think I hope this was interesting. Make sure, again, spread the word on the podcast, like and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening, and we'll look forward to next week's episode.
For sure. WeTheInvestors.org. Check us out.
Thanks.
Till next week, guys. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Let's turn on the TV real quick. See what Congress is talking about in this hearing.
An organization called We the Investors to submit comment letters in favor of the 13D proposal. Subsequently, the SEC was flooded with 350 plus comment letters from so-called individuals, but mostly form letters stamped with the moniker We the Investors in favor of their proposal.
Hey yo, you believe this bullshit? Called the so-called like we ain't real. Gensler cracking that bullwhip. Now the Wall Street criminals, they start to squeal. Got a DOJ probing, they poking around. They're gonna find gun that is smoking. No joking, only foreboding. Submit comment before market exploding. Transparency always solution. The sunlight disinfect that pollution. Now Wall Street call all the cronies to give testimony to Congress that's phony. They full of baloney. They calling us fake because they took the money. Your market at stake, so I put on the brakes. Dialed up Congress and told them that they made a giant mistake. So I called, I picked up the phone and I called. I dialed Congress and I called. I picked up the phone and I called.
comment letters from so-called individuals.
I picked up the phone and dialed Congress and I called. They counting on a complacency. Finance overcomplicated. They just stack on the confusion by obfuscating the basics with legalese and these made-up terms to make you feel dumb so you never learn and you're not concerned with no expertise in this create opportunity for Wall Street thieves who prey on the pensions and get wrist slapped so they learn the lessons, which causes tension because it seems like the SEC is just cost of business collection. So they make new rules, and what do we have here? A coordinated attack by racketeers to defund the change and stop progress, so we the investors are calling Congress. So I picked up the phone and I called. I dialed Congress and I called. I picked up the phone and I called. They called me so called, and so I called, and so I called, and so I called.
Comment letters from so-called individuals.
I picked up the phone and dialed Congress and I called. So take a stand with we the investors. Call up Congress and tell them that these new rule changes are just the beginning, that we need transparency into our markets because these racketeers for too long have been screwing with pensions, raiding our retirement, treating our markets like a free-for-all, naked shorting. The crime runs rampant, and that ends today.